Agriculture is at the forefront and is the backbone of Kenya's economy. Two-thirds of Kenyans depend on the crops they grow and the animals they keep for their livelihoods and survival. In 2005, agriculture, including forestry and fishing, accounted for about 24% of Kenya's gross domestic product (GDP), as well as for 18% of wage employment and 50% of revenue from exports. Tonight on The Entrepreneur, our focus is on agribusiness. Agribusiness is commercialized farming which uses advanced technology. We feature the unique stories of Miss Rosemary Odinga, a snail farmer, and Doris Masharia, an ornamental fish farmer. To the public domain, Rosemary Odinga is seen as a promising politician keen on following the steps of her father, Raila Amolo Odinga. This is evident from her endless efforts in spearheading youth campaigns to transform their lives. However, there is another side to this aspiring politician. Today, we meet her at Jaramogi Odinga Oginga Foundation along Kiambere Road in Nairobi, doing what she loves most. She has set up one of her 5 greenhouses in what is arguably one of the most unique and budding ventures, snail farming. She ventured into snail farming in 2007 following advice from a former African president.
I visited the snail farm in Nigeria. It was for the former president Obasanjo, who was doing snail farming. He asked me if I'm interested in farming, and I said no. I said I'm a city girl, born in the city and raised in the city. But before I left, he said you should think about farming. And so when I came back, I said, okay, let me think about it, let me research, let me try.
She did intense research on the venture, visited the University of Nairobi, and met the late Professor Musombi, a snail expert who made this dream come true.
I started it off as an experiment. I wanted to see if it's something that was hard to do, if it was easy to do, and just to see how, I was curious. That's how I started it. I started off out of curiosity.
Rosemary learned everything from the type of snails, their behavior, ideal environment, feeding, breeding, market potential, among many.
The particular species we have here in East Africa is called Achatina fulica. It's different from the one in West Africa. They have Achatina achatina, Achatina marginata. Those ones grow very big. Achatina fulica are prolific breeders. They lay between 200 to 500 eggs twice a year. That means one snail can lay at the end of the year between 400 to 1,000 eggs.
She started off with 13 giant African land snails. The beginning, though, was disheartening.
And of all those 13 snails, only 2 survived. Yes, it was a bit disheartening, but we kept on. And then those 2 laid eggs. And when we saw the eggs, we were so excited. We were like, oh, we have eggs. And that is how the snail project just generated. And snails are hermaphrodites, which means they have both male and female organs. So either one of them can lay eggs for you.
After correcting her mistakes and not losing hope, to date, the 2 remaining breeders have multiplied. She currently has more than 3,000 snails at various stages of their lives.
Snails are not big. They are very small. Anyone can handle them, even a small child can handle them. Then they also don't make noise. They don't have a nasty smell. Their care is very simple, but it needs someone who's very patient and very observant.
To ensure that snails blossom, there are certain aspects that a farmer must get right. One is temperature regulation, correct soil type that is treated and contains nutrients snails need.
You have to treat the soil. By treating, you check for impurities, you check for other organisms that are inside the soil to be able to regulate the temperature. This greenhouse and this particular lining that we used protects it from the sun. Because again, if it's too hot, they burn and they don't like to burn. And then also the trees in the area are very important because they provide a lot of oxygen and natural environment, where we have open windows to the side. So when it's too hot, we can open the windows and then there's better flow of air and it's nice and cool. When it's too cold, in the evenings or in the month of June and July, we close them down again, and therefore we keep the temperatures here warm. And we have a sprinkler system. When it gets too hot, again we turn on the sprinkler system to make sure that the place is nice and humid. When rearing snails, you have to be careful of the location that you are, the type of housing that you use, what you feed the snails. You have to be careful of the predators, for example, rats, snakes.
To rear snails, one has to obtain a license from Kenya Wildlife Service because the creatures are categorized as wild.
You have to be very careful about their security. For example, here we developed a system where you have this particular polythene that you cover the snails, and then that way they don't escape. Even the type of bucket we used was something that we had to figure out. And then the depth of the soil it has to be deep enough for them to be able to burrow inside.
She also brought on board 3 farmhands to help with the extra workload.
And what we're spraying is just water.
As a routine, she cleans them using water in spray bottles, then categorizes them in different containers.
Each particular greenhouse, I have about between 2 and 3 persons who manage the greenhouse, and we usually do it in shifts, morning shift and evening shift, so that we make sure that the place is constantly kept very clean, because snails can be very sensitive to the slightest change in temperature, slightest change in environment.
The creatures feed on vitamins. Their diet comprises of kales, cabbages, and fruits like pawpaw.
We have over 100 breeders, almost 200 breeders right now. And sometimes we, depending on what we're looking for, either increase the breeders or we reduce the number of breeders.
This greenhouse alone contains more than 1,000 basins, each with numerous snails in different stages.
And after it lays eggs, you wait a little bit, like a couple of days, and then you'll see little hatchlings coming out of the shell. And then we observe those hatchlings. After a certain period, we will separate them. And after separation, we will, like you see, trying to find over here. This one, I think, is the reproduction organ. So this one is almost ready to reproduce. And then for us, we wait about 4 months, and after 4 months now, the hatched snails are ready to go to market. It started off as a hobby, but you see the way they have such prolific breeders. And because of that, we started having more snails than we could consume ourselves. So I started reaching out to people that I thought would be interested in it. I reached out to some people in the Nigerian embassy, the Ghanaian consulate, talked to a few Chinese restaurants, and also the French restaurant, and they were interested. So now from there, that's now how we learned how to do the deshelling process and how to package them and what size goes for what market. Different markets like different sizes. The West African market liked them very, very big, and then the European market liked them when they're about this size. So this takes about 4 months before it reaches that size and ready for eating.
They are packed in 80 and 160 gram vacuum sealed bags containing 12 and 24 pieces respectively.
So for us, we break our markets into 3 different areas. There is the West African market. These are people from Nigeria and from Ghana. Then we have the European market. These are some French people and Dutch. And then we have the Asian market, which are the Chinese expatriates. But for most part, it's the expatriate market that take our snails in, individuals from the expatriate markets.
They are stored in low temperature below 10 degrees, ready for the market.
We are not able to meet the demand for snail consumption by the expatriate market in the country. So once you're able to, but there's potential for snail farming to have export, because in West Africa they export their snails to France and to China. We have about 5 greenhouses, but there is potential for them to even be much, much bigger. If you look at countries such as Australia and France, snails are grown in acres and acres. And that is because they have the potential, and that is because they have the ready market for the snail farming.
Snail meat is tantalizing and super nutritious. It tastes like fried gizzard dipped in butter.
When I first started snail farming, a lot of people thought that I was very crazy, and then they wondered, what are you doing with snails? And I kept to it, and I said, you know what, I see a future in snail farming. I see it being something different. I see it being something that can be inspiring for other people, not only to try snail farming, but to try any other form of farming. I was thinking about food security. I was thinking about jobs. I was thinking about things that are not so difficult to do, that anybody can do. And so the future of snail farming for me is very bright, because I have seen this potential in the market, and I've also seen a lot of curiosity, not just by foreigners, but also locals. I think that anybody who has an idea, stick to your idea, be true, be patient, and keep to your passion. And that's the only way we will be able to grow our country, Kenya.
It has high demand from the high-end market. Her clientele comprise high-end hotels, individual clients including expatriates, Kenyans of foreign origin, and upmarket restaurants. Rosemary attests that entrepreneurship in agribusiness holds the key to the future of Kenya and believes engaging in farming is a sign of patriotism because it's a contribution towards food security.